All right, my buddy Matt Mosley's been covering the Cowboys for over a decade. I watched Jimmy Garoppolo today, and I've defended Jimmy Garoppolo more than once. And I always say, what do you want from your quarterback? Not everybody can throw like Herbert or Mahomes. Not everybody can run like Kyler or Russell Wilson. But I do judge my quarterbacks on how are they in crisis? How are they if they don't have a great running game? How are they with a limited clock? Do they hit their layups? Do they get their 6 or 8 layups a game? And I think Garoppolo is just two magnificent drives to win it on the road against the Bengals. And I watched Dak. Dak's record is 6-17 when he doesn't get 100 yards rushing. I thought he missed his layup throws. I thought, Matt, he really struggled. Something doesn't feel right to me. And what's your takeaway on that?
Well, I think that's accurate. And as far as something doesn't feel right, and it hasn't for some time now, and we keep waiting for him to kick it back in. And so that's how the question started this past week for Jerry Jones. Is he hurt? Do you think something's wrong? Jerry, who has been protecting quarterbacks for years, basically blamed everything on the wide receivers. They said, well, they're just running the wrong routes. To your point, Colin, today he was the one, you point to quarterbacks in crisis. He caused the crisis. He caused the chaos. And this quarterback, when you go into another stratosphere pay-wise, the stakes go up, the criticism, and by the way, he had enjoyed sort of an extended honeymoon. This new, I think everybody was excited for him. He's the leader, and he's a mess right now. And that interception he threw to suddenly, I mean, think about that, Colin. You were watching several games, but you look over at that game. That's probably a game that you pretty much put away at halftime. And then suddenly you look up at 4.5 minutes and go, wait, what? Okay, now that's weird. It's 27-14. And he throws a pick six, and it's 27-20, and they get the ball back, Washington football team. And if the guy doesn't drop the ball, they got a total chance to go down there and tie that game. I think he may be hurt. I think it's like, and there are people who've been watching him for years, and I'm talking about scouts and those types of folks right now that truly think something is wrong with him, whether it be the calf strain, the shoulder. He's not himself. So not only has he lost confidence, but he's making extremely poor decisions to the point where I thought it was crazy that they had him even throw a pass. You go, well, wait, it's a naked boot, and he's supposed to be an elite quarterback. I've got like a complete lack of trust in him. And Colin, I don't understand why the coaches don't. Like, why are the coaches still trusting him when he continues to show them what he is? And right now, he's a mess.
Yeah, it's interesting. You don't want to pull a Kirk Cousins where you take the ball out of his hands. But, I think I always kind of feel there's 2 bags of money for quarterbacks. There's the big bag, and that's the obvious stuff. That's the Brady, the Mahomes, the Herbert's going to get it, the Josh Allens, Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers. We all know the big bag guy. I thought there was a lot of pressure. It was interesting watching, especially the young media, that Dak somehow deserved. He somehow deserved the big bag. And my takeaway was always, well, he's not a big bag quarterback, but my concern was always his intangibles are better than his tangibles. He simply doesn't throw a great football. And what happens with that is that he can get streaky and he can get hot. But when you add an injury, when you add a lack of a running game, when you add sometimes a little pressure, then a very average thrower becomes a bad thrower. And I think, to your point, I think he's banged up. I think both running backs are banged up. And whereas a Josh Allen can literally go toe-to-toe with Brady without a running game, that's not who Dak is. And right now, Dak needs everything sort of aligned, and it's not aligned right now. That's what I saw.
And I'm just listening to you say that. Do you realize they could show up with a 12-5 record and be right around the number 2 seed, and we could be thinking this is just really not a good football team? like this is a very uneven. That's where when you look at the schedule, they could end up there. They're sitting yeah.
They're in a division with average quarterbacks, and when healthy, between Micah Parsons, Randy Gregory, DeMarcus Lawrence, that is an incredibly athletic defensive front. So let's not say Dallas is lacking talent. I think their defensive front, when healthy, is as rangy and as athletic as Tampa's was at the end of last year. I really do. I think Randy Gregory's unblockable. I think Micah Parsons is the defensive player of the year. DeMarcus Lawrence is, at one point we thought he was overpaid, but he's super athletic. There's a reason. Here's the thing. When you go 12-5, we think you have to be led by your quarterback. But the truth is they're not. They're led by their defensive front. When it's healthy, their running game and their defensive front is the key to the team. Is that fair?
It is right now. But I mean, listen to what you're saying. I mean, think about where all the money is. You always follow the money and keep up with these contracts. And you've got a huge money wide receiver, big money quarterback, big money tailback, 3 guys that have been paid on the O-line. And so you've put all your money on that side. And it's just funny to think that. I think you're right. I think they're led by their defense. The only scary thing about that is we've seen it happen before where a defense can carry a team, but think about their non-offensive touchdowns this year. I think they have 7 of those. They had a scoop and score today from Dorrance Armstrong. That's not a real sustainable thing. We've seen great defenses, and we always point to, whatever the Ravens of 2000 or whatever.
Well, last year the Dolphins got so many special teams and defensive touchdowns. It's not sustainable.
I don't think it is either. And I think that's why most people think maybe Dak, I probably hold him in a little higher regard than you do, because I do think more than streakiness, but I thought you made a really interesting point. The intangibles are so far off the charts, but it's like it's great to go, well, this guy could run for president. Well, there's a lot of people that present extremely well. He's one of them. But then your message gets hollow when you're standing up there and the team loves you, but you throw 2 back-breaking interceptions. I mean, think about how dead that Washington football team was. They're 24-3, and they're a mess, and the Heineke's awful. At one point, I looked down on the Fox screen, and he's 5 for 19. You don't see that in high school football in Texas. You don't see that in college football. You don't see a 5 for 19 quarterback in the NFL because there's so many easy throws to make, and that guy was 5 for 19.
Well, Matt, also, it's one thing to have Josh Allen or Joe Burrow, as they both did, come firing from behind. That happens in the NFL. You go into a prevent, right? You get conservative. Josh Allen races back on Tampa. Joe Burrow races back on Garoppolo. These are beautiful throwers of the football. When Taylor Heineke in the Washington offense is coming back from the dead, that's a real concern. That's a team. Yeah, again, when I watched Buffalo come back, I didn't think they were done at half. My takeaway was, listen, they can score on 3-play drives. That's not what Washington is. Joe Burrow can score on 3-play drives. They have great receiving talent. When I watched them and Washington get back into the game, it wasn't with Cincinnati and Buffalo. It was a matter of excellent quarterback play and receiver play. In Washington's case, it was Dallas was inefficient offensively and gave them points.
Yeah. No, that's exactly how they came back. And then when they had a chance to make an enormous play late, talking about the Washington football team, Allen drops a gorgeous pass in there to Carter, and the guy just flat out drops it. I mean, they may have gone down there and tied that game. You talk about disastrous. If we were sitting here and the Cowboys found a way to lose that game, I think McCarthy. We're back to McCarthy, and you've been somewhat of a McCarthy apologist. But I think we're back to looking at him as like, what is he doing around here? Like after the game, he's quoted saying, this isn't fantasy football. Like he got mad and got defensive that people didn't understand how they couldn't hold on to that lead. and he's sitting there befuddled, not even able to tell Kellen Moore. What did he need to tell Kellen Moore late? My quarterback, I mean, he's got to look out there and go, the quarterback's in a bad way. We may not want to throw with him right now. They could just punt their way to an easy win, and they tried to hand them the game. I mean, this is a really inefficient, ugly offense right now. And again, to point you like to come back to, that's where all the money is. That's where they spend all their money. And look how bad they are. And yet, when you look at CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup and Amari Cooper, these are great players. Every one of those guys could be a number one for somebody. I don't know if Gallup could, but he's good. He's really good. And this is what they've become right now. And you're right, what you said earlier. This now is like, but that's what's bad about McCarthy. This is like Dan Quinn's team. Like, he's lost control of this thing. Their best hope is for Dan Quinn to somehow coach this team deep into the playoffs.
You know, what's really bothersome, if you're a Cowboy fan and just watch the Cowboys, you missed out on unbelievable quarterback play today. Herbert was amazing. Tom Brady in the first half was unbelievable. Josh Allen in the second. Mahomes was outstanding. Joe Burrow was fantastic. Garoppolo, the come-from-behind win on the road. There was some really high-end quarterback play. So as you sat, I have to watch all these games. As you sit and watch, Russell Wilson played well as well. If you sat and watched these 7, 8, 9 quarterbacks, and Stafford and Kyler Murray play tomorrow, and Aaron Rodgers plays tonight, so 3 of the top 7, 8 in the league didn't play. What was disturbing to watch was how much better Burrow and Garoppolo and Herbert, and how easier they threw it, and how much more comfortable they were with Dak. So I'm sitting here all afternoon watching these quarterbacks play, and it was really impressive quarterback play from a lot of the guys in this league that get criticized, and Dak was as inartistic as anybody on a winning team. He was the worst quarterback on a winning team. That's what I saw.
Yeah, what is he, 22 for 39 for 211 yards and 2 picks?
And
I appreciate you pointing out, by the way, you know, how more, you know, much more entertaining my life could be watching all these other quarterbacks and not stuck watching these Cowboys my whole career. I'd love to watch all these other performances.
So, listen, I don't want to take too much of your time. I know you probably have to celebrate another Baylor win. All they do is win now. So
number 1 in the country as of tomorrow in basketball. Yeah, and Big 12 champs.
And keeping your football coach, Dave Aranda, so that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So, listen, so what do we look at schedule-wise for the Cowboys? What is your gut feeling going forward over the next month?
Well, they play the Giants, so, you know, that feels like a win. The only game that would trouble you is against Arizona. They've had some moments this year, even in that first game against Tampa Bay, where they played, you know, pretty well against better teams. I mean, against good teams, I should say.
Yeah.
They beat. Now, that was before we knew what the Patriots have sort of turned into as of late, but now that win on the road looks better. I think they're in a bad way. I think they're lost on offense right now, but they're in such a poor division that they're going to be able to, even if they limped home, they're going to limp home at 11-6. That's limping home.
Yeah.
They could, I mean, they could finish 13-4, and we'd be like, what do you think? This 17-game thing really throws me off. I really have to stop and think about how these schedules come out. But Colin, I think if they finish 13-4, we'll be back to saying they're going to go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Well, if they finish 13-4, it will be largely because the running backs got healthy and the defense remained healthy. I think they're very viable when healthy in the backfield and the defensive front. They're an excellent team. They're just not good enough to overcome injuries in those 2 units because Dak's not as special enough.
That is correct. Where they're special is on defense. And somebody that you became enamored with quickly. I mean, I'm going to, early on in his career, Parsons is now taking over the league.
Oh, he's incredible.
And that's a wild thing to watch, is a young guy like that just completely take over, and it hasn't happened with the Cowboys in a long, long time. And Strahan was comparing him to DeMarcus Ware, but honestly, he's more versatile than Ware ever thought about being.
All right, Matt Mosley, get some rest. You do a lot of good podcasts for us at The Volume. Matt Mosley, YouTube channel. Check it out. By the way, on the YouTube channel, if I look a little dim today, I'm in Park City, Utah. I'm flying home tonight. We don't have perfect lighting. I'm not in my studio. It's life, okay? You got to deal with this sometimes.
You look fine, hazy or not. But, well, safe travels, okay? And would love to join you in Park City one of these days.
All right, buddy. Good talking.
All my best.